Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine, right here in the city of Memphis, in the county of state, Tennessee. Today's date is November the 17th, 2024. The time 11:55 a.m. First, I thank all my family, my support for you. Continue to encourage support. Continue to keep myself employed in Memphis, try to stay here. Continue to further my education, tomorrow, calling on that. Continue to pursue my social peace, to be in Memphis, country, mark. Spend time to take a break, go to school in the future. I'm gonna go back tomorrow, calling on that. I'm gonna continue to go to school. And I'm gonna continue to work toward earning my social degree, well, other degree. Now, I'm gonna start my Facebook Live. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine. I'm right here in the city of Memphis, in the county of Shelby, state of Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday, still Sunday morning, November the 17th, 2024. Time 11:57 a.m. First, I thank all my fans for your continued courage, for continue to keep myself employed. The Memphis tri-state area, continue to further my education, tomorrow, college line, continue to pursue my social degree. Still being in straight country, my print time. I took a break, going to school. In the future, I'm going to go back to school, earn my social degree, well, the other degree. Now, like I said, it's still Sunday morning, but it's a few minutes, like 3 minutes left before it be Sunday afternoon. And before I really get started on, today is my birthday. And so, still being able to make my video. And so, like I said, today is my birthday. Thank God. Thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Son of God, for blessing me to be able to celebrate another year of being able to live and to praise His holy name, and just to give Him the praise and the glory. Excuse me. And so, like I said, today is my birthday. So this whole weekend, I just been enjoying my, had the chance to be out Saturday and Sunday. So continue to, it's the weather's good outside. Like I said, today my birthday, and healthy, pretty much healthy, and in good health and strength and everything. And so celebrate my birthday. Now, let's get started. And the names of God in the Old Testament: Jehovah Nissi, Elohim, Jehovah Shammah, Jehovah Sabaoth, El Elyon, El Roy, Abba, Jehovah Shalom, and the Tetragrammaton, Yahweh. Today is my birthday, so I'm gonna take this call. Hold on. So I'm gonna pause. Well, hold on. Excuse me. Today my birthday. Like I said, today my birthday. I was gonna try to answer it, but I called him back. Today my birthday, so had to sit my phone back up there. All right. We still on the names of God in the Old Testament. And like I said, the Tetragrammaton, Yahweh, Shaddai, Jehovah Rapha, El Young, El Olam. Okay, I said Jehovah Miko Dishkim, Adonai, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Sikinu, Jehovah Roy, El Shaddai, Jehovah Rapha, Jehovah and Mighty God. So those are names of God in the Old Testament. And all this information, like I say, always remember, citations, footnotes and notes, references and sources. So when you be online and you do your search and everything, you know information gonna be sources from the web and all that. So names of God in the New Testament: Adonai, Jehovah Jireh, El, Alpha and Omega, God who sanctifies, Jehovah Roy, Holy, Elohim, Yahweh Shalom, Jehovah Sabaoth, Jehovah Rapha, El Olam, Mighty God, Jehovah Shaddai, Jehovah Sikinu, Abba, God, our shepherd, Son of God. So those are names in the New Testament, in the Bible. Now I know you didn't hear like Emmanuel and Christ and Jesus and all that. Like I said, hey, these are sources from the web. Before we go to the Tetragrammaton, let's click over here to BibleStudyTube.com. Now, reading from the New International Version of the Holy Bible, the Bible verse of the day, coming from the book of Proverbs in the Old Testament. The 29th chapter, the 11th verse, and it reads, "Fools give full vent to their rage, but the wise bring calm in the end." And we're reading from the New International Version of the Holy Bible. And we come from the book of Proverbs in the Old Testament, chapter 29, verse number 11. Let me scroll. Today's Bible reading is coming from the book of 1 Peter, the first chapter. Also, the book of Jeremiah is in the Old Testament. The 31st chapter and the 32nd chapter. And also the book of Psalms, 134. So that's today's Bible reading. Then you also have Bible study videos, featured verse topics. For example, healing Bible verses about grief, God's promises in the Bible, encouraging Bible verses, forgiveness Bible verses, love Bible verses, worry and anxiety Bible verses, conformity Bible verses for faith in hard times, friendship Bible verse, strength Bible verse, inspirational Bible verse, also popular Bible verses. The book of John, the 3rd chapter, verse number 16. The book of Genesis, the 1st chapter, verse number 1. The book of Philippians, the 4th chapter, verse number 6. The book of Philippians, the 4th chapter, verse number 13. The book of Romans, the 12th chapter, verse number 2. The book of Romans, the 8th chapter, verse 28. The book of Proverbs, the 3rd chapter, verse number 6. The book of Jeremiah, the 29th chapter, verse number 11. The book of Proverbs, the 3rd chapter, verse number 5. The book of Matthew, 28th chapter, verse number 19. And you also have popular Bible commentaries. And again, today's inspiration, the daily verse, Romans chapter 8, verse number 28. And it reads, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. So again, today's inspiration, your daily verse comes from the book of Romans, 8th chapter, verse 28. Now, while we still over here on Bible Study 2, Bible version translation, best known translation. For example, the Holman Christian Standard Bible, English Standard Version, King James Version, Message Bible, New American Standard Bible, New International Version, New King James Version, New Living Translation, and the New Revised Standard Version of the Holy Bible. You have other translations like the Modern Bible, the Bible in Basic English, Common English Bible, Complete Jewish Bible, Good News Translation, God's Word Translation, Hebrew Names Version, the Jubilee Bible 2000, Lexham English Bible, New Century Version, New International Reader's Version, Orthodox Jewish Bible, Third Millennium Bible, World English Bible, Young's Literal Translation, older translations, the American Standard Version, the Darby Translation, Dewey Reams Catholic Bible, Revised Standard Version, Tyndale Bible, the Latin Vulgate Bible, the Webster Bible, the Wycliffe Bible. Then you have New Testament only, Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, Italian, Dutch, and Chinese. So you have a lot of versions of the Holy Bible. And so again, we're on BibleStudy2.com. Let's click over here to Bible Gateway. Reading from the New International Version of the Holy Bible. And it's coming from the book of Psalms 119, verse 105. Let's see. Okay, it says, verse number 105, it says, your word is a lamp for my feet, a light on my path. So again, that's the new reading from the New International Version of the Holy Bible. And reading the verse of the day. Psalms chapter 119, verse 105. Now, available versions of the Holy Bible. We have language and versions from A to Z. Amharic Bible, the New Amharic Standard Version. Let me see what's this. Arabic Bibles, Awadhi Bibles, Bulgarian Bibles, Cibono Bible, Cherokee, New Testament Bible, First and Native Americans, Sorani Bible, Czech Bible, Welsh Bible, Danish, German, English. It's a lot of English Bibles. Spanish Bibles, a lot of Spanish Bibles. Persian, it's a Farsi New Testament Bible. You have Finnish Bible, French Bible, Greek Bible, Gujarati Bible, Hebrew Bible, Hindi Bible, Croatian Bible, Haitian Creole Bible, Hungarian Bible, Hawaii Pidgin Bible. You have Icelandic Bible, Italian Bible, Japanese Bibles. What's it? Jakaltiko Oriental Bible, Kitchi Bible, Korean Bible, Latin Bible, Luganda Bible, Maori Bible, Macedonian Bible, Marathi Bible, Mam Central Bible, and Mam Toto Santo Bible, Low German Bible, Nepali Bible, Dutch Bible, Norwegian Bible, Chichewa Bible, Oriya Bible, West Central Romo Bible, Punjabi Bible, Polish Bible, Papio, Nawat Bible, Portuguese Bible, Kishi, Occidental Bible, Romanian Bible, Russian Bible, Slavic Bible, Somali Bible, Albanian Bible, Serbian Bible, Swedish Bible, Swahili Bible, Tamil Bible, Thai Bible, Tagalog Bible, Twi Bible, Ukrainian Bible, Urdu Bible, Uspantico Bible, Vietnamese Bible, Yoruba Bible, Chinese Bibles. So the Holy Bible is being translated in various languages from A to Z all over the world. And so again, we was on BibleGateway.com. Like I said, we're going to click over into this tetragram. We're on Wikipedia. Let me click over here right. Oh, now we're still over here on Wikipedia. Let me go back right quick. Now, let's touch on this Protestant Reformation. And when it comes to the Reformation, you got Protestant reformers, English reformers, and now also don't forget you got the Counter Reformation, as well as when you say Counter Reformation, you also got to look at Catholic Reformation. Like I said, we're on Wikipedia, but don't forget you got Britannica, the Encyclopedia Britannica. You can go there, and you can learn a lot about the Reformation. Like I said, Encyclopedia Britannica, pretty much same information. Might be worded a little bit different because it's Encyclopedia Britannica, but in between, you're talking about the same information. Just a different writer might write it a little bit different, but it's gonna still tell you the same information. And of course, you can go to the library. So let's click back over here to Wikipedia. All right. So we're gonna go back to the Tetragrammaton now, but we want to talk about this Protestant stuff, and we want to make this clear. You know, the times that we've been sitting here reading, and we were talking about dualism in cosmology, and they was talking about how then we'll go to Wikipedia, and then we'll click over to Encyclopedia Britannica, this dualism in cosmology, and they was talking about, they had mentioned this so-called Gnostic Christian. Now, when we talk about this Protestant Reformation, don't leave that dualistic Christian mess out. Now, you want to be a reformer. Let me see. This is what I'm saying this for. Now, you say you want to be a reformer. You want to try to criticize. You want to attempt to criticize the Catholic Church. Now, all this reforming that they was doing, you ain't see none of these so-called reformers say anything about reforming all this so-called Gnostic Christian mess. But you want to be a reformer. You want to claim that the Catholic Church is wrong about this and wrong about that. You don't see none of these reformers talking about Gnostic Christians. But you want to be a reformer. See, you want to claim that the Catholic Church is wrong about this. You want to claim that the Catholic Church is wrong about that. But you did not even mention Gnostic Christians. But you want to claim that you're a reformer. I want to put that out there. But you want to claim that you're a reformer. The Catholic Church is wrong about this. The Catholic Church is wrong about that. Okay. Well, Now, when it comes to this so-called Reformation, Protestant Reformation, European Reformation, and it's talking about Western Christianity. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff that happened in Europe, mainly Western Europe, Central Europe, you know. Let's click over here to the early reform movements. Before 1517. Because see, before Martin Luther, before John Calvin, you had reformers, you had forerunners of the Protestant Reformation, like Peter Waldo and John Wycliffe. We're going to get to John Wycliffe and John Huss. We're going to get to that. Girolamo, Savonarola, Lorenzo Valla, Wessel, Gansford, and other groups are prefiguring some of his views, mainly Martin Luther. Now, what I'm looking at is some of this stuff because want to bring this out. Now, like I said, I'm looking at this. I'm gonna bring this up about this so-called Protestant and all these proto-Protestants, because it, you know, just like we were talking about this dualist, some of this stuff is coming up. It is being brought up and around, you know, about this proto-Protestant and some of these people that they were talking about. These so-called Gnostics, Gnostic Christians. But you want to call yourself a Protestant. You want to claim that you're trying to claim that the Catholic Church is wrong about this and the Catholic Church wrong about that. You know, who you supposed to be telling somebody wrong when dualism is the Jews don't even recognize none of that Gnostic nonsense, and the Catholic Church don't either. But you're gonna try to bring up indulgence and all this. See, some of the issues that came, that they try to bring up, like predestination and transubstantiation and this indulgence. See, John Wycliffe, let's click over to John Wycliffe. Now, he was part of the Catholic Church. He was over there in England, was an English scholastic philosopher, Christian reformer, Catholic priest, and a theology professor at the University of Oxford. Wycliffe is tradition believed to have advocated or made a vernacular translation of the Vulgate Bible to Middle English, though more extent scholarship has minimalized the extent of his advocacy or involvement for lack of direct contemporary evidence. Certain of Wycliffe's later followers derogatorily called Lollards. And who was the Lollards? Well, they was a proto-Protestant Christian religious movement that was active in England from the mid-14th century until the 16th century English Reformation. It was initially led by John Wycliffe, a Catholic theologian who was dismissed from the University of Oxford in 1381 for heresy. And so, derogatory called Lollards by their Orthodox contemporaries in the 15th and 16th centuries, adopted a number of the beliefs attributed to Wycliffe, such as theological virtues, predestination, iconoclasm, and the notion of Caesaropapism, with some questioning the veneration of saints, the sacraments, requiem masses, transubstantiation, monasticism, and the legitimacy of the role of the papacy. Wycliffe's writings in Latin greatly influenced the philosophy and teaching of the Czech reformer John Huss. Now, so like I said, now some of the things that John Wycliffe some of the things he was talking about Now, when it comes to his politics, in 1374, Wycliffe's name appears on a commission after a bishop, which the English government sent to Burgess to discuss with the representatives of Gregory XI a number of points in dispute between the king and the pope. He was no longer satisfied with his chair as the means of propagating his ideas, and soon after his return from Bruges, he began to express them in tracts and long work. In a book concerned with the government of God and the Ten Commandments, he attacked the temporal rule of the clergy, the collection of annates, indulgences, and simony. According to Benedictine historian Francis Aidan Casquet, at least some of Wycliffe's programs should be seen as naive attempts at social reconstruction in the aftermath of continuing institutional chaos after the Black Death, 1347-1349. Now, see, these are some of the things that Wycliffe talked about that he was attacking, like annates, indulgences, and simony. Now, I'm going to scroll down. Let me see here. Now, with his death and posthumous declaration of heresy. The Council of Constance declared Wycliffe a heretic on May 4th, 1415, and banned his writings. The council declared that Wycliffe's work should be burned and his bodily remains removed from consecrated church ground, following the customary logic that heretics had put themselves outside the church. This order, confirmed by Pope Martin V, was eventually carried out in 1428. Wycliffe's corpse, or a neighbor's, was exhumed. Unusually, on the orders of the bishop, the remains were burned and the ashes drowned in the river Swift, which flowed through Lutterworth. So that's what the Catholic Church said about John Wycliffe. Now let me click back over. Now let's click over here to Martin Luther. Now, Martin Luther was a German priest, theologian, author, hymn writer, professor, and Augustinian friar. Luther was the seminal figure of the Protestant Reformation, and his theological beliefs formed the basis of Lutheranism. He is widely regarded as one of the most influential figures in Western and Christian heresy. Luther was ordained to the priesthood in 1507. He came to reject several teachings and practices of the Roman Catholic Church. In particular, he disputed the view on indulgences. Luther attempted to resolve these differences amicably, first proposing an academic discussion of the practice and efficacy of indulgences in 95 Theses, which he authored in 1517. In 1520, Pope Leo X demanded that Luther renounce all of his writings, and when Luther refused to do so, excommunicated him in January of 1521. Later that year, Holy Roman Emperor Charles V condemned Luther as an outlaw at the Diet of Worms. When Luther died in 1546, Pope Leo X excommunication was still in effect. Now, also, I want to bring this up. Martin Luther also, in 2 later works, Luther expressed anti-Judaistic views. And what that means is religious anti-Semitism is aversion to or discrimination against Jews as a whole based on religious doctrines or superstition, which expect or demand the disappearance of Judaism and the conversion of Jews to other faiths. And so, Luther expressed anti-Judaistic views, calling for the expulsion of Jews and the burning of synagogues. These works also targeted Roman Catholics, Anabaptists, and non-Trinitarian Christians based upon his teaching, despite the fact that Luther did not directly advocate the murdering of Jews. Some historians contend that his rhetoric contributed to the development of anti-Semitism in Germany and the emergence centuries later of the Nazi Party. But you see, when John Wycliffe was talking about indulgences, the Catholic Church told you right then and there that it was wrong. That it was wrong. Then John Huss was burned at the stake. All right, John Huss. Sometimes anglicized John Huss, and referred to it in historical text as Johannes, was a Czech theologian and philosopher who became a church reformer and an inspiration of Hussitism, a key predecessor to Protestantism, and a similar figure in the Bohemian Reformation. Huss is considered to be the first church reformer, even though some designate the theorist John Wycliffe. His teachings had a strong influence, most immediately in the approval of a reformed Bohemian religious denomination and over a century later on Martin Luther. After being ordained as a Catholic priest, Huss began to preach in Prague. He opposed many aspects of the Catholic Church in Bohemia, such as his views on ecclesiology, simony, and the Eucharist, and other theological topics. Huss was a master, dean, and rector at the Charles University in Prague between 1409 and 1410. Alexander V issued a papal bull that excommunicated Huss. However, it was not enforced, and Huss continued to preach. Huss then spoke out against Alexander V's successor, Anti-Pope John the 23rd, for his selling of indulgences. Huss' excommunication was then enforced, and he spent the next 2 years living in exile. When the Council of Constance When the Council of Constance assembled, Huss was asked to be there and present and present his views on the dissension within the church. When he arrived with a promise of safe conduct, he was arrested and put in prison. He was eventually taken in front of the council and asked to recant his views. He refused. On 6 July 1415, he was burned at the stake for heresy against the teachings of the Catholic Church. After Huss was executed, the followers of his religious teachings, known as Hussites, refused to elect another Catholic monarch and defeated 5 consecutive papal crusades between 1420 and 1431 in what became known as the Hussite War. Both the Bohemian and the Moravian population remained majority Hussite until the 1620s, when a Protestant defeat in the Battle of the White Mountain resulted in the lands of the Bohemian crown coming under Habsburg dominion for the next 300 years and being subject to immediate and forced conversion in an intense campaign of return to Catholicism. So that what the Catholic Church said about all that. All right. So, like I said, John Wycliffe declared a heretic by the Catholic Church. John Huss, brought up again in indulgences, was burned at the stake and declared a heretic. Martin Luther was declared a heretic at the Diet of Worms. He brought up indulgences again. But no reason for you to keep bringing up the same thing and try to make it sound like you know what you're talking about. And then you get declared a heretic like your predecessor. All right. Now, when we talk about the Counter-Reformation, also sometimes called the Catholic Revival, was the period of Catholic resurgence that was initiated in response to and as an alternative to the Protestant Reformation at the time. It is frequently dated to have begun with the Council of Trent, 1545, 1563, and to end with the conclusion of the European Wars of Religion. The European Wars of Religion were a series of wars waged in Europe during the 16th, 17th, and early 18th century, fought after the Protestant Reformation began in 1517. The war disrupted the religious and political order in the Catholic countries of Europe or Christendom. Now, other motives during the wars involved revolt, territorial ambitions, and great power conflicts. By the end of the 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648, Catholic France had allied with the Protestant forces against the Catholic Habsburg monarchy. The wars were largely ended by the Peace of Westphalia, 1648, which established a new political order that is now known as Westphalian sovereignty. Now, it said the conflicts began with the Minor Knights' War, 1522 to 1523, followed by the larger German Peasants' War, 1524-1525, in the Holy Roman Empire. Warfare intensified after the Catholic Church began the Counter-Reformation against the growth of Protestantism in 1545. The conflicts culminated in the 30 Years' War, which devastated Germany and killed 1/3 of its population. The Peace of Westphalia broadly resolved the conflicts by recognizing 3 separate Christian traditions in the Holy Roman Empire: Roman Catholicism, Lutheranism, and Calvinism. Smaller religious wars continued to be waged in Western Europe until the 1710s, including the Wars of the Three Kingdoms, 1639-1651. And what that is, the Wars of the Three Kingdoms were a series of conflicts fought between 1639 and 1653 in the kingdoms of England, Scotland, and Ireland, then separate entities in a personal union under Charles I. And then you had in the British Isles, the Savoyard-Waldensian War, 1655-1690, in the Toggenburg War, 1712, in the Western Alps. So this is a response to all this so-called Protestantism. It was a war. And it was initiated in part to address the challenge of the Protestant Reformation. The Counter-Reformation was a comprehensive effort to arise in front of the decrees of the Council of Trent. The effort produced apologetic and polemical documents, heresy trials, anti-corruption efforts, spiritual movements, the promotion of new religious orders, and the flourishing of new art and musical styles. Such policies by the Imperial Diets, and the Imperial Diets was the deliberative body of the Holy Roman Empire. It was not a legislative body. In contemporary, its members envisioned it more like a central forum where it was more important to negotiate than to decide. And so, by the Imperial Diets of the Holy Roman Empire, had long-lasting effects in European history, with exiles of Protestants continuing until the 1781 Patent of Toleration, although smaller explosions took place in the 19th century. Now, such reforms include the foundation of seminary for the proper training of priests in the spiritual life and the theological traditions of the church, the reform of religious life by returning orders to their spiritual foundation, and new spiritual movements focusing on the devotional life and a personal relationship with Christ, including the Spanish mystics. In the French school of spirituality also involved political activities and used the regional inquisitions. A primary emphasis of the Counter-Reformation was a mission to reach parts of the world that had been colonized. The first wave of European colonization began with Spanish and Portuguese conquests and explorations, and primarily involved the European colonization of the Americas, though it also included the establishment of European colonies in India and so we have been colonized as predominantly Catholic, and also tried to reconvert nations such as Sweden and England that once were Catholic from the time of the Christianization of Europe, but had been lost to the Reformation. Various Counter-Reformation theologians focused only on defending doctrinal positions such as the sacraments and pious practice that were attacked by the Protestant Reform up to the Second Vatican Council in 1962-1965. So that's the Counter-Reformation as well as the Catholic Reformation. right? So, like I said, this is the counter Reformation. See, this is important that we bring this up. When you talk about Peter Waldo, John Wycliffe, and you look at when you talk about they have issues with the Catholic Church, and so when the Catholic Church see what it is you talking about, they tell you you're a heretic, and they made it clear, just like what they did with John Huss. After the church, Catholic Church already told you with John Wycliffe what they had said, that he was a heretic. John Huss continued with this stuff, talking about indulgence. He ended up getting burned at the stake. Next thing you know, here comes Martin Luther. And what he do? The same thing. Bring up indulgence. Again, what happened? He go to the council at the Dial of Worm and get declared a heretic. Then he becomes an outlaw by the Holy Roman Empire. Then what happened? A war broke out. There wasn't no reason for that. The Catholic Church told you what was right. The Catholic Church told you what was right and that they were wrong. And see, this is the same thing about this Gnostic Christian. And it had been brought up in this Protestant. And see, that's what I was doing that for. Because when you talk about this proto-Protestants, see, some of this earlier, when you go to the early reform movements, that's what they were saying. That some of these so-called Gnostic Christians, like the Albigensians, they were being accused of being some Nazis, like them Huguenots. See, the Albigensians were a religious group that first appeared in Western Europe around the first half of the 11th century, and were earlier called Cathars. The Cathars denied the incarnation, resurrection, Trinity, and held to dualist ideas. The inclusion of the Cathars or Albigensians as a Protestant reformer has been a matter of controversy. Some people in the past attempted to justify the Albigensians as Protestants have even argued against them being dualists. However, without much evidence, there is a degree of confusion about the Albigensians, and they are sometimes lumped with their contemporary, the Waldensians, and unrelated. Moving further centuries later, Albigensian was used as a slur for the unrelated Huguenots. It's just like them Waldensians. This is some of this Peter Waldo stuff. The Waldensians was a 12th century movement often viewed as a precursor to the Reformation. The Waldensians did not practice infant baptism, and they rejected the use of indulgences. The Waldensians also denied transubstantiation. The Waldensians wanted to follow Jesus in poverty and simplicity. The Waldensians later joined the Protestant Reformation. The Waldensian movement was started by Peter Waldo. They contested the institution of the papacy and the wealth of the church. However, they took part in the sacraments of the Catholic Church. So like I said, this is the reason why you don't never forget about them so-called Gnostic Christians. They're talking about they was involved in the Protestant Reformation and all this. And then every time it's got to be all this indulgence had to be brought up. You ain't have to bring up and keep bringing up indulgence or none of that. When the Catholic Church come to tell you, man, they when you hear that, the Catholic Church addressed it right then and now. Peter Waldo and the Waldensians, John Wycliffe, they keep telling you a heretic. John Huss brought it up again. They burned him at the stake. Then Martin Luther brought it up again. And when he brought it up again, what happened to him? He got declared a heretic, just like the rest of them. Then he goes on the run. Then he becomes an outlaw. Then what happened? War broke out. European 30 Years War. Then after the 30 Year War, what happened? Refugees. Protestants get exiled. They get exiled. And you know where they came? You remember that part where we were talking about the counter Reformation, the Catholic revival? All these places where the Catholic Church, the Spanish and the Portuguese had colonized certain areas of the world. The Catholic Church was still trying to talk about Jesus Christ in all these areas of the world that had been colonized. And what happened? The exiles came over here to the New World. See, when you bring up history, you're talking about the first and Native Americans. The Catholics, the Spanish and the Portuguese came over. And then when you talk about slavery, when them exiles, the so-called Protestant exiles, got kicked out of Europe, where they go? They came over here to the New World. And when they came over here to the New World, what came after that? Now you already had the Arab slave trade. You already had that. What happened now? What happened? Then you had the transatlantic slave trade. It was the Protestants. Not leaving out, but that's where it started, with the Protestants. me see here. Let me see here. Now you know that here in the United States of America, they talk about that Great Awakening. See, that's that Protestant stuff that came over from Europe. The Great Awakening. All right, like I said, the Catholic Church had the Counter Reformation, Catholic Reform, Revival, Catholic Reform, and those Protestant exiles, them the ones who came. That what we talking, that Great Awakening around the 1700s. Now, what I'm looking at is that when people came over to America, Oh, there we go. I missed it. See, the English North America. The most famous immigration to America was the migration of the Puritan separatists from the Anglican Church of England. They fled first to Holland and then later to America to establish the English colony of Massachusetts in New England, which later became one of the original United States. These Puritan separatists were also known as the Pilgrims. After establishing the colony at Plymouth, which became part of the colony of Massachusetts, in 1620, the Puritan Pilgrims received a charter from the King of England that legitimized their colony, allowing them to do trade and commerce with merchants in England in accordance with the principle of mercantilism. You see, this was got all this slavery started here in America. Now, slavery goes all the way back, but I'm saying here in the Americas, that was one of the ways of promoting slavery. Mercantilism. Civil and religious restrictions were most strictly applied by the Puritans of Massachusetts, which saw various banishments applied to the sinners to enforce conformity, including the branding iron, the whipping post, the beer bowls, and the hangman's noose. Notable individuals persecuted by the Puritans include Anne Hutchinson, who was banished to Rhode Island during the antinomian controversy, and Quaker Mary Dyer, who was hanged in Boston for repeatedly defying the Puritan law banning Quakers from the colony. Dyer was one of the 4 executed Quakers known as the Boston Martyrs. Execution ceased in 1621 when King Charles II explicitly forbade Massachusetts from executing anyone for professing Quakerism. In 1647, Massachusetts passed a law prohibiting any Jesuit Catholic priest from entering territory under Puritan jurisdiction. Any suspected person who could not clear himself was to be banished from the colony. The second offense carried a death penalty. So, like I said, So, like I said, all this stuff that the Protestants brought up, the Catholic Church had already told you, your heritage. Now, when it comes to this tetragrammaton, okay, the tetragrammaton is the 4-letter Hebrew theonym, transliterated as capital YHWH or capital YHVH. The name of God in the Hebrew Bible. The 4 letters written and read from right to left in Hebrew are Yod, He, Wah, and He. The name may be derived from a verb that means to be, to exist, to cause, to become, or to come to pass. While there is no consensus about the structure and etymology of the name, the form Yahweh is now accepted almost universal among biblical and Semitic linguistic scholars, though the vocalization Jehovah continues to have wide usage. The books of the Torah and the rest of the Hebrew Bible, except Esther, Ecclesiastes, and with the possible In verse 86, the Song of Songs contains this Hebrew name. Observant Jews and those who follow Talmudic Jewish tradition do not pronounce nor do they read aloud proposed transcription forms such as Yahweh or Jehovah. Instead, they replace it with a different term, whether in addressing or referring to the God of Israel. Common substitutes in Hebrew are Adonai, literal translation, my lords, pluralis majestatis taken as singular, or Elohim, literally in gods, or treated as singular when meaning God in prayer. Hashim, the name, in everyday speech. Now, the four letters, the letter properly written and read from right to left, Yod, He, Wahi. The etymology. The Hebrew Bible explains it by the formula. Transliterated, he translated I am that I am, the name of God revealed to Moses in Exodus 3:14. This would frame capital YHWH as a derivation from the Hebrew triconsonantal root to be, become, come to pass, with a third person masculine. Y prefix equivalent to English he in place of the first person, thereby affording translation as he who causes to exist, he who is, etc. Although this would elicit the form capital YHYH, not YHWH. To rectify this, some scholars propose that the tetragrammaton derive instead from the triconsonantal root itself, an archaic doublet of, with the final form eliciting similar translations as those derived from the same. As such, the consequence among modern scholars considers that capital YHWH represents a verbal form, with the Y representing the third masculine verbal prefix of the verb HYH, to be, as indicated in the Hebrew Bible. Vocalization. Like all letters in the Hebrew script, the letters in capital YHWH originally indicated consonants. In unpointed biblical Hebrew, most vowels are not written, but some are indicated ambiguously, as certain letters came to have a secondary function indicating vowels, similar to the Latin use of I and B to indicate either the consonants JW or the vowels IU. Hebrew letters used to indicate vowels are known as, or matrix lectionis, mothers of reading. Therefore, it can be difficult to deduce how a word is pronounced from its spelling, and each of the four letters in a tetragram can individually serve as meta lectionis. Several centuries later, between the 5th through 10th century Common Era, the original consonantal text of the Hebrew Bible was provided with vowel marks by the Masoretes to assist reading. In place of where the word to be read, the kiri, different from that indicated by the consonant of the written text, the kita. They wrote the kiri in the margin as a note showing what was to be read. In such a case, the vowel marks of the kiri were written in the kita. For a few frequent words, the marginal note was omitted. These are called kiri perpetuum. One of the frequent cases was the tetragrammaton, which according to later rabbinic Jewish practice should not be pronounced, but read as Adonai, literal translate, my lords, pluralis majestatis, taken as singular. Or if the previous or next word already was Adonai, as Elohim, God. Writing the vowel diacritics of these two words on the consonants, capital YHVH, produces and respectively ghost words that would spell Jehovah and Yehovah, respectively. The oldest complete or nearly complete manuscripts of the Masoretic text with Iberian vocalizations such as the Aleppo Codex and the Leningrad Codex, both of the 10th or 11th century, mostly write YAHWA with no point on the first H. It could be because the old diacritic point plays no useful role in the distinction between Adonai and Elohim, and so it's redundant. Or it could point to the kiri being, which is Aramaic for the name, Yahweh. The scholarly consensus is that the original pronunciation of the tetragram was Yahweh. R. Reno agrees that when in the late first millennium Jewish scholars inserted indication of vowels into the Hebrew Bible, they signaled that what was pronounced was Adonai, Lord. Non-Jews later combined the vowels of Adonai with the consonant of the tetragrammaton and invented the name Jehovah. Paul June and Takamitsu Murake state the kiri is the Lord, whilst the ketub is probably, according to ancient witnesses, and they add note 1 in our translation, we have used Yahweh, a form widely accepted by scholars, instead of the traditional Jehovah. his 1869 Smith Bible Dictionary, a collaborative work on noted scholars of the time, declared whatever, therefore, be the true pronunciation of the word. There can be little doubt that it is not Jehovah. Mark P. Arnold remarks that certain conclusions drawn from the pronunciation of as Yahweh would be valid even if the scholarly consensus were not correct. Thomas Romer holds that original pronunciation of capital YHWH was Yahoo or Yahoo. Max Riesel, in the mysterious name of Yah, said that the vocalization of the tetragram must originally have been the element is found in Amorite person name, commonly denoted as the Semitic equivalent of the Akkadian. The latter refers to one existing, which in the context of deities can also refer to one's eternal existence, which aligns with Bible verses such as Exodus 3:15 and views that can mean I am the existing one. It also explains the ease of Israelites applying the Olam or everlasting epithet from El to Yahweh. But J. Philip Hyde believes it is more likely that refers to a God creating and sustaining the life of a newborn child rather than the universe. This conception of God was more popular among ancient Near Easterners, but eventually the Israelites removed the association of Yahweh to any human ancestor and combined it with other elements. Oh, okay, no, lost where I was in. Okay, when I scroll with other elements, Yahweh and Halil bin Sasson states there is insufficient evidence for Amorites using to refer to a god, but he argues that it mirrors other theophoric names and that Yahweh, or more accurately, Yahweh, derived from the root, which means he will be. Now, here we go. The adoption of the time of the Protestant Reformation of Jehovah in place of the traditional Lord in some new translations. Vernacular or Latin of the biblical tetragrammaton stirred up dispute about its correctness. In 1711, Adrian Reeland published a book containing the text of 17th century writing, 5 attacking and 5 defending it, as critical of the use of Jehovah. It incorporated writing by Johannes van Dietrich, 1550-1616, known as Drusius, Sixtinus Amame, 1593-1629, Louis Capel, 1585-1658, Johannes Buxtor, 1564-1629, Jacob Alting, 1618-1679, defending Jehovah, were writings by Nicholas Fuller, 1557-1626, and Thomas Gallagher, 1574-1654, and 3 essays by Johann Leusden, 1624-1699. The opponents of Jehovah said that the tetragrammaton should be pronounced as Adonai, and in general do not speculate on what may have been the original pronunciation, although mention is made of the fact that some held that Java was their pronunciation. Almost 2 centuries after the 17th century works reprinted by Reeland, 19th century Wilhelm Gesenius reported in his Thesaurus Philologicus on the main reason of those who argue either for as the original pronunciation of the tetragrammaton as opposed to Jehovah. He explicitly cited the 17th century writers mentioned by Reeland as supporters of, as well as implicitly citing Johann David Michaelis, 1717-1791, and Johann Friedrich von Meyer, 1772-1849. The latter, whom Johann Heinrich Kurtz described as the last of those who have maintained with great personality that was the correct and original pointing. Edward Robertson's translation of a work by Gesenius gives Gesenius' personal view as my own view coincides with that of those who regard this name as anciently pronounced like the Samaritans. Now, you got non-biblical texts that have the tetragrammaton, such as those Egyptian hieroglyph inscription. And then you have texts with similar theonyms. the Elephantine papyri about 500 BCE. Talking about Yahweh. We talking about 500 BCE. That's a long time ago. Then you got these magical papyri among the Jews in the Second Temple period. Magical amulets became very popular. Representations of the Tetragrammaton name or combination inspired by it in languages such as Greek and Coptic, giving some indication of its pronunciation, occur as names of powerful agents in Jewish magical papyri found in Egypt. Apparently, the Samaritan enunciation of the Tetragrammaton, Yahweh. The most commonly invoked God is Leo or Elio. Another vocalization of the Tetragrammaton. There is a single instance of the heplogram. And Yahweh is found in an Ethiopian Christian list of magical names of Jesus, purporting to have been taught by him to his disciples. Then you have vernacular evidence, theophoric names. There's a common Hebrew prefix form, Yeho or Yo, and a common suffix form. Okay. Then you had a Hebrew Bible, the Masoretic text. According to the Jewish Encyclopedia, it occurs 5,410 times in the Hebrew Scriptures. In the Hebrew Bible, the Tetragrammaton occurs 6,828 times. As can be seen in Cathel's Bible, Hebraica. Okay. Now, in the Dead Sea Scroll, practice varied with regard to use of the Tetragrammaton, according to Brown, Driver, Briggs. All right. The first appearance of the Tetragrammaton is in the book of Genesis 2:4. The only books it does not appear in are Ecclesiastes, the book of Esther, and the Song of Songs. In the book of Esther, the Tetragrammaton does not appear, but it has been distinguished acrostic-wise in the initial or last letters of 4 consecutive words, as indicated in Esther 7:5, by writing the 4 letters and read in at least 3 ancient Hebrew manuscripts. The short form, a diagrammaton, occurs 50 times if the phrase hallelujah is included, 43 times in the psalm, once in Exodus 15:2, 17:16, Isaiah 12:2, and 26:4, and twice in Isaiah 38:11. It also appears in the Greek phrase Alleluia or Hallelujah in Revelation 19:1, 3, 4, 6. Other short forms are found as a component of theophoric Hebrew names in the Bible. A form of appears in the name. The following graph shows the absolute number. Okay. Then you got the Leningrad Codex. Now, when it comes to the Dead Sea Scrolls and other Hebrew and Aramaic texts, the Tetragrammaton and some other names of God in Judaism, such as El or Elohim, were sometimes written in Paleo-Hebrew script, showing that they were treated specially. Most of God's names were pronounced until about the 2nd century BCE. Then, as a tradition of non-pronunciation of the name developed, alternatives for the Tetragrammaton appeared, such as Adonai, Curious, and Theos. In the 4Q120, a Greek fragment of Leviticus 26:2-16, discovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls, Qumran, has Leo, the Greek form of the Hebrew Tetragrammaton, YHW. The historian John the Lydian, 6th century, wrote the Roman Varro, 116-27 BCE, defining him, that is the Jewish God, said that he is called Leo in the Chaldean mysteries. Van Kooten mentions that Leo is one of the specifically Jewish designations for God, and the Aramaic papyri from the Jews at Elephantine show that Leo is an original Jewish term. The preserved manuscript from Qumran show the inconsistent practices of writing the Tetragrammaton, mainly in biblical quotations. In some manuscripts, it's written in Paleo-Hebrew script, square scripts, or replaced with 4 dots or dashes. The members of the Qumran community were aware of the existence of the tetragrammaton, but this was not tantamount to granting consent for its existing use in speaking. This is evidenced not only by special treatment of the tetragrammaton in the text, but by the recommendation recorded in the rule of association. Who will remember the most glorious name, which is above all? The table below presents all the manuscripts in which the tetragrammaton is written in Paleo-Hebrew script, in square scripts, and all the manuscripts in which the copyists have used tetrapunctum. Now, when it comes to the Septuagint, editions of the Septuagint Old Testament are based on the complete or almost complete 4th century manuscript Codex Vaticanus, the Codex Sinaiticus, and Codex Alexandrinus, and consistently used, Lord, where the Masoretic text has the tetragrammaton in Hebrew. This corresponds with the Jewish practice of replacing the tetragrammaton with Adonai when reading the Hebrew word. However, 5 of the oldest manuscripts now extant in fragmentary form render the tetragrammaton into Greek in a different way. 2 of these are the 1st century BCE. That's a long time ago. Papyrus Fouad 266 uses in the normal Hebrew alphabet in the midst of his Greek text, and 4Q120 uses the Greek transcription of the name. 3 later manuscripts use the name in Paleo-Hebrew script. The Greek Minor Prophet scroll from Nahal Hebrew and the Papyrus Orientis 3522 and Papyrus Orientis 551-1. Other extent, ancient fragments of Septuagint or Old Greek manuscript provide no evidence on the use of the tetragrammaton. In correspondence with the Hebrew text tetragrammaton, they include the oldest known example, Papyrus Rylands 458. Scholars differ on whether in the original Septuagint translating the tetragrammaton was represented by the tetragrammaton in either normal or Paleo-Hebrew form, or whether different translators use different forms in different books. Frank Shaw argues that the tetragrammaton continued to be articulated until the 2nd or 3rd century CE, and that the use of Leo was by no means limited to magical or mystical formulas, but was still normal in more elevated contexts, such as that exemplified by Papyrus 4Q120. Shaw considers all theories that posit in the Septuagint a single original form of the divine name as merely based on a priori assumptions. Accordingly, he declared the matter of any especially single original form of the divine name is too complex. The evidence is too scattered and indefinite, and the various approaches offered for the issue are too simplistic to account for the actual scribal practices. He holds that the earliest stages of the translation were marked by diversity, page 262, with the choice of certain divine names dependent on the context in which they appear, such as Genesis 4:26, Exodus 3:15, 8:22, 28:32, 32:5, and 33:19. He treats the related blank spaces in some Septuagint manuscripts in the setting of spaces around the divine name in 4Q120 and Papyrus Fouad 266b. And repeats that there was no one original form, but different translators had different feelings, theological beliefs, motivations, and practices when it came to their handling of the name. His view has won the support of Anthony Armire, Bob Beckin, and comment on Shaw's 2011 dissertation on the subject, D.T. Runia. Now, let's see here. All right, let's see here. Now we talking about the Dead Sea Scroll. We talking about the Septuagint and these fragments that's been found, and they talking about the Tetragrammaton. And then you got manuscripts of the Septuagint and later Greek renderings, patristic writings of the Tetragrammaton. Now then, you know the patristic writing, that's 1st century when you talking about the Catholic Church in the Peshitta, the Vulgate Bible. usage in religious tradition, Judaism, spoken prohibitions, written prohibitions, Kabbalah, so on and so forth. Samaritans, Christianity, Eastern Orthodox, Catholicism, Lutheranism, and Anglicanism, so on, Islam, so on and so forth. So we talking about the Tetragrammaton. All right. Now, when it comes to a heresy in Judaism, Jewish heresy refers to those who believe with contradictory traditional doctrine or rabbinic Judaism, including theological beliefs and opinions about the practice of halakha, Jewish religious law. Jewish tradition contains a range of statements about heretics, including laws on how to deal with them in a communal context and statements about the divine punishment they are expected to receive. Rabbinic definition of heresy. Talmudic era, the Greek term for heresy, originally denoted division, sect, religious, or philosophical party, is applied by Josephus to the three Jewish sects, Sadducees, Pharisees, and Essenes, in the sense of a schism, to be deprecated. The word occurs in 1 Corinthians 11:19, Galatians 5:20, and particularly in 2 Peter 2:1. Hence, heretic in the sense of factious, Titus 2:10. The specific rabbinical term for heresies or religious divisions due to an unlawful spirit is manim, literally kinds of belief. The singular men for heretic or Gnostic is coined idiomatically like God and Amharitz. See Gnosticism. The law, you shall not cut yourselves, is interpreted by the rabbi. You shall not form divisions, but shall form one bond. After Amos 9:6. Besides the term men for heretic, the Talmud uses the word hizonim, outsiders, epicoros, and kofa by Torah, or kofa by ikar, he who denies the fundamentals of faith. Also, paresh min dot is bibor, he who deviates from the customs of the community. Religious fundamentalists claim that all these groups are consigned to Gihonon for all eternity and have no possibility of a portion in the world to come. The Mishnah in Sanhedrin 10:1 says the following: have no share in the world to come. One who says there is no resurrection of the dead derived from the Torah, and one who says the Torah did not originate from heaven in an epicoros. Rabbi Akiva says also one who reads external literature, Hebrew. This is explained in books of heretics. The biblical verse, so that you do not follow your heart and eyes, is explained as you shall not turn to heretic views, minute, which lead your heart away from God. The Birkat Harmonium is a curse on heretics. The belief that the curse was directed at Christians was sometimes called for persecution of Jews. Modern scholarship has generally evaluated that Birkat Harmonium probably did originally include Jewish Christians before Christianity became markedly a Gentile and, in the eyes of the rabbinic sect, idolatrous religion. So heresy in Judaism. Now, Hippolytus of Rome was a bishop of Rome, one of the most important 2nd and 3rd century Christian theologians whose provenance, identity, and corpus remain elusive to scholars and historians. Suggested communities include Rome, Palestine, Egypt, Anatolia, and other regions of the Middle East. The best historians of literature in the ancient church, including Eusebius of Caesarea and Jerome, openly confess they cannot name where Hippolytus, the biblical commentator and theologian, served in leadership. They had read his works but did not possess evidence of his community. Photius I of Constantinople describes him in his Bibliotheca as a disciple of Irenaeus, who was said to be a disciple of Polycarp. And from the context of this passage, it is supposed that he has suggested that Hippolytus so styled himself. This assertion is doubtful. One older theory asserts he came into conflict with the popes of his time and seems to have headed a schismatic group as a rival to the Bishop of Rome, thus becoming an anti-pope. In his view, he opposed the Roman popes who softened the penitential system to accommodate the large number of new pagan converts. However, he was reconciled to the church before he died as a martyr. Stated in the 4th century, various legends arose about him, identifying him as a priest of the Novatianist schism or as a soldier converted by St. Lawrence. He has also been confused with another martyr of the same name. Pope Pius IV identified him as St. Hippolytus, Bishop of Pontus, who was martyred in the reign of Severus Alexander, through his inscription on a statue found at the Church of St. Lawrence in Rome and kept at the Vatican as photographed and published in Bunsen. Controversy surrounds the corpus of the writer Hippolytus. In the Victorian era, scholars claimed his principal work to be the refutation of all heresies. Of his 10 books, Book 1 was the most important. It was long known and was printed with the title Philosophomena. Among the works of Origen, books 2 and 3 are lost, and books 4 through 10 were found, without the name of the author, in a monastery of Mount Athos in 1842. Emmanuel Miller published them in 1851 under the title Philosophomena, attributing them to Origen of Alexandria. Recent scholarship prefers to treat the text as the work of an unknown author, perhaps of Roman origin. Refutation of all heresies, also called a Elichus or Philosophomena, is a compendious Christian polemical work of the early 3rd century, whose attribution to Hippolytus of Rome or an unknown pseudo-Hippolytus is disputed. It catalogs both pagan beliefs and 33 Gnostic Christian systems deemed heretical by the authors and or compilers, making it a major source of information on contemporary opponents of Christian orthodoxy as understood today. The first book, a synopsis of Greek philosophy, circulated separately in several manuscripts and was known as the Philosophena, a title which some extend to the whole work. Books 4 through 10 were recovered in 1842 in a manuscript at Mount Athos, while books 2 and 3 remain lost. The work was long attributed to the early Christian theologian Origen. Hippolytus of Rome. Refutation of all heresies. Anti-gang, anti-Gnostic, and anti-Hazy. Also, adversus heresies, against heresies. Saint Irenaeus, the Bishop of Lyons, together with Saint Ignatius, the Bishop of Antioch, wrote a 5-volume book refuting Gnosticism, proving that Gnosticism was a heresy. Also, Saint Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, in his 39th festal letter, Easter letter, in the year 367 AD, banned all non-Christian writing. Saint Athanasius, Bishop of Alexandria, together with all the other bishops in the Catholic Church, they went around and collected all that Gnostic theologian writing, and they destroyed it. Some of that Gnostic theologian writing didn't get destroyed. Codex, the Askew Codex, it didn't get destroyed. The Berlin Codex, it didn't get destroyed. The Bruce Codex, it didn't get destroyed. And the Nagamai Library, it didn't get destroyed. And all those codexes are being investigated, being researched and studied by Jewish scholars as well as Catholic scholars. And scholars all around the world, at colleges and universities all around the world. And see, the sororities and the fraternities, the souls and the frat bitches, they go around being misleading themselves as well as others. They go around trying to destroy themselves as well as others. Going around being self-destructive and destructive. They're going around trying to destroy wildlife, nature, and the environment. They're trying to destroy the North and South Pole. Trying to destroy our climate. Going around now they're trying to go out in space, trying to do the same thing. Going around trying to have anal sex. Talking about the material world is evil. All they doing is lying. Also, St. Epiphanius of Salome, the Bishop of Cyprus, wrote a 3-volume book titled Panarian Greek, Panarian Latin, translated mean bread basket. The scholars at the college and universities around the world say that St. Epiphanius of Salome, Bishop of Cyprus, 3-volume book is also adversus heresies, against heresies. The Almighty Conservative Vice Lord. Vice Lord Four Corner Hustle. The Almighty Black Prince Stone. The Almighty Mickey Coblestone. Cracker. The Almighty Black Disciple. Pop. The Almighty Bluefin Black Disciple. The Black Disciple. The Lord Stone Disciple. Gangster Disciple Killer. GDK. Glazed Donut Killer. GDK. 7-Eleven. G Killer. Goofy. Lord Stone disciple. It's important. Like I said on my previous video, I'm going to say it again. Evan Pepperlo Perry is real and true. Lord Stone disciple. Jeff Fort, Black Prince Stone, is real, true. Mickey Caldwell, the Mickey Cobra Stone, Mickey Caldwell is real and true. The Black Disciple, King David Bosdale, and all the guys who was there at the very beginning. See, they real and true. See, when you try to lie, expose that lie. Just like this Larry Hoover. It's a lie. The people that was outside the window, they were misled. And they misled Larry Hoover and the rest of them stupid peons that was in the house with him, looking out the window. On the border of Ranger and Disciple territory. See, when you try to lie, and then you get exposed for being a liar, you can run and hide, just like this so-called black gangster new breed. They can call themselves going to try to be violent with the vice lord. Try to be violent. See, when you try to lie, you get exposed for being a liar. You get exposed. You get brought to the light. Just like out there in California, Los Angeles, California, this so-called blood gang, Crip gang. See, when you get exposed for being a liar, you get brought into the light. All you've been doing is lying. And then had a nerve to call yourself trying to be violent. Got time. Lord Stone disciple. It's time. It's time. See, all you've been doing depending on them bitches on the East Coast. That's what you've been doing. You've been depending on them bitches on the East Coast. Okay. Time. Lord Stone disciple. Got time. That's all it is. Time. Got time. See, you already been exposed. That's what I've been doing. Exposing. Bring you to the light. Exposure for lying. You ain't know what you was talking about. Trying to accuse other people of being stupid and ignorant. You the one that's stupid. You the one that's ignorant. Didn't know what you was talking about. See, when the dirty sheets and the well and Sheba were doing things in the city of Chicago, in the state of Illinois, it came a time when you had to end at those clubs. Evan Pepperlo Perry, Vice Lord. He did the right thing. He did the right thing. Lord Stone disciple. Evan Pepperlo Perry did the right thing. He did the right thing. He real and he true. See, you ain't gonna get away with lying on Evan Pepperlo Perry. You ain't gonna get away with lying. See, that's what happened when we talk about the four corner hustle. The conservative vice lord, Walter Wheat. See, there was no reason for this stupid Angelo Taylor. But see, that was that Gnostic shit. That was that Gnosticism did. All that nonsense and all the other stupid stuff that people have done. All it is being misled with this Gnostic mess. There was no reason for Walter Wheat to lose his life. No reason at all. None whatsoever. It's wrong. It's wrong with that Angelo Taylor. It's wrong. And the rest of you people, it's wrong. There was no reason for that. It's got to be justice. It's got to be justice. That's the reason why I do the things I do. Expose these people for lying. and going around trying to victimize innocent men, women, and children with this Gnostic nonsense. See, that's what they did with this. When they found the Nangama library, a bunch of criminals. That's what criminals do. They go around lying. A lot of black / African Americans didn't have no education, period. Didn't have no education, period. Couldn't even pronounce their own name. Didn't have no education, period. But you gonna tell them to be a gangster. That's what the oppressor did. You gonna tell somebody to be a gangster. Can't even pronounce gang. Can't even pronounce their own name. Can't read, write, or can't even pronounce nothing. Don't even know their alphabet, their number, don't know nothing. But you gonna tell them to be a gangster. See, that's what the oppressor did. Then you tell them about the occult, about voodoo and all this other stuff. They ain't even got no education. See, that's what the oppressor did. Deny you education, but always trying to tell you something. Deny you education, but gonna tell you something. Gonna tell you this and that. You got time. Just like in Chicago, Chicago. See this gangster disciple, this black gangster new breed, depending on them bitches on the East Coast. Blood gang, Crip gang, depending on them bitches on the East Coast. You got time. You got time. You got time. It will be justice. It will be justice. I'm gonna show your ass about payback. I tell you, gonna show you about payback. You got the nerve to walk your ass around and think somebody taking something off. That ain't what I've been doing. That ain't what I've been doing. I ain't taking nothing. Minister Rico and a lot of men who were there with Elvin Pepperlo Perry in the very beginning. Bobby Gore had to did time in the penitentiary. Now he out here on the street. You ain't got to worry about it. That's one of the reasons why I do the things I do. You ain't got to worry about it. Why Keto went to prison and got out of prison. He ain't got to worry about you. You ain't nobody to be worried about. Don Dirt did time in the prison. Then got out of prison. Him and a lot of other men, as well as women. Then did time in the prison. State and federal. Did time in prison. You ain't got to worry about no damn battle on no East Coast trying to use no Gnosticism. Gnosticism ain't nothing. It's a lie. It's anal sex. That's what it is. It's anal sex. Don't you never let nobody fool you like that. Don't you never let nobody make a fool out you. Ain't nothing but anal sex. Because ain't no heterosexual man or woman got to be constantly making up no damn lie. So it always, you draw the conclusion. You talking about some anal sex. That's all you talking about. You trying to make up some damn lie talking about God. That's all you done. Because all the religious people, the Jews and the Catholics already told you, God didn't tell you to be no homosexual. And talking about all these women, talking about, but see, when it comes to a woman, it be these men trying to have anal sex with the men and the women. But you ain't got to be sitting around talking about no vaginal sex. It just get straight to the point. But I know the Catholic Church, they're going to say, but that anal sex stuff, that's all that what that Gnostic nonsense is. Anal sex. The material world evil. Anal sex. And then gonna throw God in, gonna make it sound like God approves of it. No, God didn't tell you to do nothing. You just be doing the stuff on your own because you yield to the devil, to Satan. And see, it's one of the things about this Gnostic nonsense, just like I was saying earlier. See, all that Protestant, so-called Protestant stuff, there were precursors to the Protestant, but the Catholics were saying things about the Catholic Church need to make reform. Way even before Peter Waldo, even before John Wycliffe, and before John Huss, there were precursors to the Protestant Reformation. They were Catholics saying things about the Catholic Church need to make reform. They didn't do all the nonsense that you try to do. See, all that, this the Huguenots and the Cathars and the Peter Waldo and the Waldensians. See, by them being in the Catholic Church, they was hearing about things about people saying that the Catholic Church need to make reform. You had people in the Catholic Church who were nothing but heretics anyway. And a lot of guys, based on the way they were taught, that's what they was taught to be, heretics in the church. People who were undermining the Catholic Church. Behind all this death, the Black Death, the Catholic Church lost a lot of people. And just people, the world population period. The Black Death took a lot of people away. You know, people died from the Black Death. And then after the Black Death, that's when a lot of this stuff started, this so-called Protestant mess and all this Gnostic foolishness started coming back up. The Catholic Church stood against it as they stand against Gnosticism today. Ain't no but a bunch of ignorance. But see, like I said, if you want to be a Protestant against, why you ain't be a Protestant against Gnostics? See, you want to try to say that the Catholic Church this and is wrong on this and wrong on that. But just like we read earlier, some of them so-called Gnostics, they was around at that time. The earlier Reform movements. Some of them so-called Gnostic groups, some of them so-called Gnostic Christians, you ain't hear nobody talking about they wanted to protest against them like the Catholic Church was doing, as well as the Jews. But you want to say you want to protest against the Catholic Church about this and about that. That's who it was. It was the Gnostics. The so-called Gnostic Christians. The Huguenots, the Cathars, name all of them, because they was around at that time. They was around. In Europe, for example, Peter Waldo, the Waldensians. See, there were people walking around, and they were going trying to do that kind of stuff. But you ain't hear nobody protesting about that. But you want to protest, you want to say that the Catholic Church wrong about this and the Catholic Church wrong about that. And then look what they do. Them same individuals, after all this stuff, you know, Peter Waldo and John Wycliffe, they all been declared heretics by the Catholic Church. Whatever they brought up, the Catholic Church was right there. You're a heretic. You're a heretic. Because you ain't talking about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Whatever you bring it up. John Huss, burned at the stake. See, this like I said earlier, it ain't like Martin Luther didn't know about all this stuff. He already knew. Then what he do? He bring up the same thing. Indulgence. In the same outcome. Get declared a heretic and a criminal. Be declared a heretic by the Catholic Church and a criminal by the Holy Roman Empire. Then he go on a run. Then what happened? A war break out. For 30-some years. And do you see how many people died in the war? But the Catholic Church stood strong. Made all kind of reforms. Came all the way to the New World. Formed colonies. And who came behind? The Protestants. What is it that the Protestants did? Committed all kind of atrocities against the first and Native Americans. And what else did they do? Mercantilism. What else did they do? We had the Arab slave trade, and what else? What did the Protestants do? Mercantilism. They came over to America with mercantilism. What did they do? Slavery. In the name of Jesus. Is that what they did? Yeah, that's what they did. That's who it was. Yeah, that's who it was. It was the Protestants, the Gnostics, the Gnostic Christians. That's the reason why I've been saying all the time. Lord Stone disciple is real and true. Elmer Pepperlo Perry was real and true. Because see, that's all them people did. They tried to go around trying to make it sound like they can hide and all this and trying to talk about Gnosticism. You've been lying the whole time. Because there ain't no such thing as no Gnosticism. They just made it up. They don't do it, make up a bunch of lies. That's the reason why when you see Hippolytus or Rome or whoever this writer was, he still took the information, compiled all that information, which is accurate. All these different pagan groups and so-called Gnostic Christian groups. St. Epiphanius of Saturday, the Bishop of Cyprus, wrote his book, 3-volume book. St. Irenaeus, the Bishop of Lyon, together with St. Ignatius, the Bishop of Antioch, 5-volume book, refuting Gnosticism, proving that Gnosticism was a heresy. Just like the Jews did. Rabbi Akiva, that Gnosticism is a heresy. Elmer Pepperlo Perry is real and true. Larry Hoover's a peon with the rest of them punk-ass cowards. You know, some bitches. The so-called black gangster new breed, man, you ain't number some bitches. The so-called blood gang, crip gang, you ain't number some bitches. Jeff Fort, real and true. King David Bosdale, real and true. Them bitches on the East Coast, just like I've been telling you, man, you ain't number some bitches. Time. Got time? You thought you had all this time to lie about Gnosticism. Especially them stinking assholes. You thought you had all this time. The Latin kings and queens, the Trinitarios on the East Coast. See, like I told you, Mr. Rico ain't got to lose no sleep at night You ain't got to lose no sleep at night. Why Keith ain't got to lose no sleep at night? I'm tell you, hey, Don Dirk ain't got to lose no sleep at night. Period. They ain't got to worry about you. I'm tell you, we're gonna get all this. We're gonna get all these lies brought to the light. Lord Stone disciple is Lord Stone disciple. You ain't getting away with nothing. You ain't getting away with nothing on no East Coast. You ain't getting away with nothing. I tell you, man, you ain't getting away with nothing. Got time. And then living in this day and time, got plenty of weapons. Got all these damn guns, bullets. What they got now? The switches. Hey, like I told Minister Rico. Hey, I told Waikita. I told Don Dirk, honest truth. You know, I'm an unbe discharged veteran of the United States Marine Corps, man. I'm telling you, you ain't got to be. See, the first thing to overcome when you deal with an explosive is fear. Get over the fear. Once you get past the fear, just know what you're doing. That's all you got. Know what you're doing. Because when it comes to explosive, it ain't no certain, it ain't no one type. So just overcome the fear. Because we got some bitches over there on the East Coast. Some bitches over there on the East Coast. That's what them bitches out there in Los Angeles, California, call themselves the Blood Gang Crip, and that's who they depended on. And then them bitches up there in Chicago call themselves the Gangster Disciple. And then you got them other bitches call themselves the Black Gangster New Breed. That's who they depended on. They depended on them bitches over there on the East Coast. You got time. Now look, what time is it? Jewish principle of faith. Judaism does not centralize authority in any single individual group. The formulation of principles of faith that are universally recognized by all branches of Judaism. Now, when it comes to branches of Judaism, you got Jewish religious movements, sometimes called denominations, include diverse groups within Judaism which have developed among Jews from ancient times. Today in the West, the most prominent divisions are between traditionalist Orthodox movements, including Haredi, ultra-traditionalists, and modern Orthodox branches, and modernist movements such as Reform Judaism, originating in late 18th century Europe, conservative Masorti, originating in 19th century Europe, and other smaller ones, including the Reconstructionist and Renewal movements, which emerged later in the 20th century in the United States. In Israel, variation is marginally similar, different from the West, and having roots in the old Yishuv and pre to early state Yemenite infusion. Among other influences for statistical and practical purposes, the distinctions there are based upon a person's attitude to religion. Most Jewish Israelis closely classify themselves as secular, Haloni, traditional, Masortim, religious, Dadi, or ultra-religious, Haredi. The Western and Israeli movements differ in their views on various issues, as do those of other Jewish communities. These issues include the level of observance, the methodology for interpreting and understanding Jewish law, biblical authorship, textual criticism, and the nature or role of the Messiah or Messianic age. Across these movements, there are marked differences in liturgy, especially in language in which services are conducted, with the more traditional movements emphasizing Hebrew. The sharpest theological division occurs between traditional Orthodox and the greater number of non-Orthodox Jews adhering to other movements, or to none, such that the non-Orthodox are sometimes referred to collectively as the liberal or progressive streams. Other divisions of Judaism in the world reflect being more ethnically and geographically rooted. Beta Israel, Ethiopian Jews, and Beni Israel, among the ancient Jewish communities of India. Normatively, Judaism excludes from its composition certain groups that may name or consider themselves ethnic Jews but hold key beliefs in sharp contradiction. For example, modern or ancient Messianic Jews. So those are branches of Judaism remain undefined. There is no central authority in Judaism that exists today, although the Sanhedrin, the supreme Jewish religious court, would fulfill this role if it were reestablished. Instead, Judaism's principal faith remained debated by the rabbis based on their understanding of the sacred writings, laws, and traditions, which collectively shape its theological and ethical framework. The most accepted version in extent is the opinion of Maimonides. Maimonides' collection of fundamentals is found in his commentary to the Mishnah. He stresses the importance in believing that there is one single omniscient, transcendent, non-compound God who created the universe and continues to monitor all creation to allow for eventual reward or punishment. Part of the list is the idea that God established a covenant with the Jewish people at Mount Sinai and revealed his laws and 613 commandments to them in the form of the written and oral Torah. In Rabbinic Judaism, the Torah consists of both the written Torah, Pentateuch, and the tradition of oral law, much of it later codified in sacred writing. You got to see the Mishnah or Talmud. Traditionally, the practice of Judaism has been devoted to the study of Torah and observance of its laws and commandments. In normative Judaism, the Torah and hence Jewish law itself is unchanging, but interpretation of the law is more open. It is considered a mitzvah, commandment, to study and understand the law. The proper counterpart for the general English term faith, as occurring in the expression principle of faith, would be the concept of emunah. In Judaism, the word amen comes from this word and means I trust, believe. While it is generally translated as faith or trust in God, the concept of emunah can more accurately be described as an innate conviction, a perception of truth that transcends reason. Emunah can be enhanced through wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and learning of sacred Jewish writing. But emunah is not simply based on reason, nor can it be understood as the opposite of or standing in contrast to reason. Conception of God. Monotheism. Judaism is based on a strict monotheism and a belief in one single, indivisible, non-compound God. The Shema Yisrael, one of the most important Jewish prayers, encapsulates the monotheistic nature of Judaism. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is one. Judaism emphatically rejects any concept of plurality with respect to God, explicitly rejecting polytheism, dualism, and Trinitarianism, which are incompatible with monotheism as Judaism understands it. The unity of God is stated many times in Jewish tradition. It is the second of Maimonides' 13 principles of faith. Maimonides wrote that this God is one, not two or more than two, but one, whose unity is different from all other unities that there are. He is not one as a genus, which contains many species, is one. Nor is he one as a body, containing parts and dimensions, is one. But his is a unity that which there is no other anywhere. Yod, Yesod, HaTorah, 1:7. In Jewish tradition, dualistic and Trinitarian concepts of God are generally referred to as Shatuf, partnership, meaning an incorrect but not an idolatrous view. God is the creator of the universe. Most Jews believe that God is creator of the universe. Different sects of Jews view this in different ways. For example, some ultra-Orthodox groups reject the concept of evolution and believe the earth to be only a few thousand years old. Other groups of Orthodox and non-Orthodox Jews do not believe in a literal interpretation of the Genesis creation narrative. And according to that view, Judaism is not in contradiction to the scientific model that states that the age of the universe is around 13.77 billion years old. Norbert and Samuelson writes, the question of dating the universe has never been a problem in Jewish philosophy, ultimately because their philosophy has never taken the literal meaning of the Bible to be revealed, to be its revealed true meaning. All right, let me see here. The nature of God. The Jewish view that God is eternal, with neither beginning nor end, a principle stated in a number of biblical passages. The rabbis taught a quite literal, down-to-earth view of the eternalness of God, that God is eternal, but it is not given to man to explore the full meaning of this idea, and so one cannot therefore expect to find in the rabbinic literature anything like a detailed examination of what is meant by divine eternity. A famous Mishnah statement on attempts to pierce the veil is this: whoever reflects on four things, it were better for him that he had not come into the world. What is above, what is beneath, what is before, and what is after. The traditional Jewish view is that God is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnibenevolent. Various Jewish thinkers, however, have proposed a finite God sometimes responds to the problem of evil, and ideas about free will. Louis Jacobs writes that modern Jewish thinkers such as Levi Olin, echoing some classical Jewish writers such as the 14th century Talmudist Gersonidi, have thought of God as limited by his own nature, so that while he is infinite in some respect, he is finite in others, referencing the idea present in classical source that there is a primal formless material coexisting with God from all eternity, upon which God has to work, and that God only knows the future in a general sense, but not how individual men will exercise their choice. On the topic of omniscience and free will, Jacob writes that in the medieval period, three views were put forth. Maimonides who wrote that God had foreknowledge and man is free. Gersonidi, who wrote that man is free and consequently God does not have complete knowledge, and Hesdad Crescus, who wrote in Or Odone that God has complete foreknowledge and consequently man is not really free. Sole devotion to the Creator. Within Judaism, the essence of worship is deeply rooted in the belief of monotheism, emphasizing the exclusive devotion to the Creator. This principle dictates the worship and reverence should be directed solely towards God. As articulated by Maimonides' fifth principle, faith, according to this belief, no entity aside from the Creator is deemed worthy of worship. Revelation. The Hebrew Bible, or Tanakh, is the Jewish scripture canon and central source of Jewish law. The word is an acronym formed from the initial Hebrew letters of the three traditional subdivisions of the Tanakh: the Torah, teaching also known as 5 books of Moses or Pentateuch, the Nevi'im, prophets, and the Ketuvim, writings. The Tanakh contains 24 books in all. Its authoritative version is the Masoretic text. Traditionally, the text of the Tanakh was said to have been finalized at the Council of Germany in 70 CE. Although this is uncertain, in Judaism, the term Torah referred not only to the 5 books of Moses, but also to all of the Jewish scripture, the whole of Tanakh, and the ethical and moral instruction of the rabbi, the oral Torah. In addition to the Tanakh, there are 2 further textual traditions in Judaism: Mishnah, tractates expound on Jewish law, and the Talmud, commentary of Mishnah and Torah. These are both codifications and redactions of the Jewish oral traditions and major works in rabbinic Judaism. The Talmud consists of the Babylonian Talmud produced in Babylon around 600 CE and Jerusalem Talmud produced in the land of Israel circa 400 CE. The Babylonian Talmud is the more extensive of the two and considered the more important. The Talmud is a representation of the Torah through sustained analysis and argument with unfolding dialogue and contention between rabbinic sages. The Talmud consists of the Mishnah, legal code, and the Gemara, Aramaic for learning and analysis and commentary to that code. Rabbi Dean Steinsaltz writes that if the Bible is the cornerstone of Judaism, then the Talmud is the central pillar. No other work has had a comparable influence on the theory and practice of Jewish life, shaping influence on the theory and practice of Jewish life and states. The Talmud is the repository of 1,000 years of Jewish wisdom and the oral law, which is as ancient and significant as the written law. The Torah finds expression therein. It is a conglomerate of law, legend, and philosophy, a blend of unique logic and shrewd pragmatism of history and science, anecdotes and humor. Although its main object is to interpret and comment on a book of law, it is simultaneously a work of art that goes beyond legislating and practical application. And although the Talmud is, to this day, the primary source of Jewish law, it cannot be cited as an authority for purpose of ruling. Though based on the principle of tradition and transmission of authority from generation to generation, it is unparalleled in its eagerness to question and re-examine convention and accepted views, and to root out underlying causes. The Talmudic method of discussion and demonstration tries to approximate mathematical precision, but without having recourse to mathematical or logical symbols. The Talmud is the embodiment of the great concept of mitzvah, Talmud, Torah. The positive religious duty of studying Torah, of acquiring learning and wisdom, study which is in its own end and reward. Moses and the Torah. Orthodox and conservative Jews hold that the prophecy of Moses is held to be true. He is held to be the chief of all prophets, even of those who came before and after him. This belief was expressed by Maimonides, who wrote that Moses was superior to all prophets, whether they preceded him or rose after. Moses attained the highest possible human level. He perceived God to a degree surpassing every human that ever existed. God spoke to all other prophets through an intermediary. Moses alone did not need this. This is what the Torah means when God said, mouth to mouth, I will speak to him. The great Jewish philosopher Philo understands this type of prophecy to be an extraordinarily high level of philosophical understanding which had been reached by Moses and which enabled him to write the Torah through his own rational deduction of natural law. Maimonides described a similar concept of prophecy. Since a voice that did not originate from a body cannot exist, the understanding of Moses was based on his lofty philosophical understanding. However, this does not imply that the text of the Torah should be understood literally as according to charisma. Rabbinic tradition maintained that God conveyed not only the words of the Torah, but the meaning of the Torah. God gave rules as to how the law were to be understood and implemented, and these were passed down as an oral tradition. This oral law was passed down from generation to generation and ultimately written down almost 2,000 years later in the Mishnah and the two Talmuds. For Reformed Jews, the prophecy of Moses was not the highest degree of prophecy, rather it was the first in a long chain progressive revelation in which mankind gradually began to understand the will of God better and better. As such, they maintained that the laws of Moses are no longer binding, and it is today's generation that must accept what God wants of them. This premise is also rejected by most reconstructed Jews, but for a different reason. Most posit that God is not a being with a will, thus they maintain that no will can be revealed. The origin of the Torah. The Torah is comprised of 5 books, called in English Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. They chronicle the history of the Hebrews and also contain the commandments that Jews are to follow. Rabbinic Judaism holds that Torah extent today is the same one that was given to Moses by God on Mount Sinai. Maimonides explained, we do not know exactly how the Torah was transmitted to Moses, but when it was transmitted, Moses merely wrote it down like a secretary taking dictation. Thus, every verse in the Torah is equally holy, and they all originate from God and are all part of God's Torah, which is perfect, holy, and true. Then you have Haredi Jews generally believe that the Torah today is no different from what was received from God to Moses, with only the most minor of scribal errors. Many of the Orthodox Jews suggest that over the millennium some scribal errors have crept into the Torah's text. They note that the Masoretes, 7th to 10th century, compared all known Torah variations in order to create a definitive text. However, even according to this position, that the scrolls that Jews possess today are not letter perfect. The Torah scrolls are certain the word perfect, particularly receptors that were divinely revealed to Moses. Indeed, the general consensus of Orthodox rabbinic authority possess their belief in the word perfect nature of the Torah scroll as a defining feature of Orthodox Judaism. Prophecy. Jews believe that the Almighty created time choose to prophesy. Many of such occurrences are described in the Nevi'im, the books of the prophets. However, since the destruction of the first temple, prophecy has ceased. Then you have the oral Torah. Orthodox Jews view the written and oral Torah as the same as Moses taught for all practical purposes. You have conservative Jews tend to believe that much of the oral law is divinely inspired, while Reform and Reconstructed Jews tend to view all of the oral law as an entirely human creation. Now, let me scroll here. God's relationship with men. Judaism focuses more on how God defines men than one trying to define God. There is therefore a focus on what people are expected to be or do far more than on spelling out theological beliefs. People are born with both a tendency to do good and do evil. Jewish tradition mostly emphasizes free will, and most Jewish thinkers reject determinism on the basis of free will and the exercise of free choice have been considered a precondition or moral light. Moral indeterminacy seems to be assumed both by the Bible, which bids man to choose between good and evil, and by the rabbis who hold the decision for following the good inclination rather than the evil. Rest with every individual. Maimonides asserted the compatibility of free will with foreknowledge of God. Only a handful of Jewish thinkers have expressed deterministic views. This group includes the medieval Jewish philosopher Hasidic Kreskin and the 19th century Hasidic rabbi Mordecai Yosef, learner of Esbecker. All is necessary for God because he is perfect, but for mankind all is possible by virtue of choice. The two types of views are true with knowing about the prophet who is endeavored with God to be wise and to perform miracles for him. Judaism affirmed that people are born with both a Yisr Hatov, an inclination or impulse to do good, and with a Yisr Hara, an inclination or impulse to do evil. These phrases reflect the concept that within each person there are opposing natures, continuing in conflict and referenced many times in the rabbinic tradition. The rabbis even recognize a positive value to the Yisr Hara. Without the Yisr Hara, there would be no civilization or other fruits of human labor. Midrash states, without the evil inclination, no one will father a child, build a house, or make a career. The implication that Yisr Hatov and Yisr Hara are best understood not only as moral categories of good and evil, but as the inherent conflict within man between selfless and selfish orientation. Judaism recognized two classes of sin: offenses against other people and offenses against God. Offense against God may be understood as violation of a contract, the covenant between God and the children of Israel. Once a person has sinned, there are various means by which they may obtain atonement. See atonement in Judaism. Judaism rejects the belief in original sin. Both ancient and modern Judaism teaches that every person is responsible for his own actions. The existence of some innate sinfulness on each human being was discussed in both biblical, Genesis 8:21, Psalm 51:5, and post-biblical source. However, in the biblical verse, this is brought as an argument for divine mercy, as humans cannot be blamed for the nature they were created with. We have some apocryphal and pseudepigraphic sources express pessimism about human nature. A grain of evil seed was sown in Adam's heart from the beginning. In the Talmud, Abdazara has an unusual passage which Elder Kiesler described as the serpent seduced Eve in paradise and impregnated her with spiritual physical dirt, which was inherited through the generation. But the revelation at Sinai and the reception of the Torah cleansed Israel. Kiesler states that although it is clear that belief in some form of original sin did exist in Judaism, it did not become mainstream teaching, nor dogmatically fixed, but remained at the margins of Judaism. Reward and punishment. The mainstream Jewish view is that God will reward those who observe his commandments and punish those who intentionally transgress them. Examples of rewards and punishment are described throughout the Bible and throughout classical rabbinic literature. The common understanding of this principle is accepted by most Orthodox and conservative and many Reformed Jews. It is generally rejected by the Reconstructionists. The Bible contains reference to Sheol, literally gloom, as the common destination of the dead, which may be compared with the Hades or underworld of ancient religions. In later tradition, this is interpreted either as hell or as a literary expression for death or the grave in general. Let me see here. Israel chosen for a purpose. God chose the Jewish people to be in a unique covenant with God. The description of this covenant is the Torah itself. God further declared in the Torah through prophecy to Moses that his firstborn is the Israelite. However, closeness and being chosen does not imply exclusivity, as anyone can join and convert. Included in the idea of being chosen is that Jews were chosen for a specific mission, a duty to be a light unto the nation, and to have a covenant with God as described in the Torah. The Messiah. Judaism acknowledges an afterlife, but does not have a single or systemic way of teaching about the afterlife. Judaism places its overwhelming stress on Olam Hazi, this world, rather than Olam Haba, the world to come. And speculations about the world to come are peripheral to mainstream Judaism, and Perky Avak, ethics of the Father. It is said that 1 hour of penitence and good deeds in this world is better than all the life of the world to come. But 1 hour spiritual repose in the world to come is better than all the life of this world, reflecting both a view of the significance of life on earth and the spiritual repose granted to the righteous in the next world. Jews reject the idea that Jesus of Nazareth was the Messiah and agree that the Messiah is not yet come. Throughout Jewish history, there have been a number of Jewish Messiah claimants considered false by Jews, including most notably Simon Bar Kokhba and Sabbatai Zevi, whose followers were known as Sabbateans. All right. And then, you know, different branches of Judaism have different views. All right. Now we're gonna go over. We're talking about dualism in cosmology, and we're gonna go over here. We're gonna go over here to Britannica first. Dualism in religion, the doctrine that the world of reality consists of two basic, opposed, and irreducible principles that account for all that exists, and has played an important role in the history of thought and of religion. The nature and significance in religion, dualism means the belief in two supreme opposed powers of gods, or sets of divine or demonic beings. They cause the world to exist. It may conveniently be contrasted with monism, which sees the world as consisting of one principle, such as mind, spirit, or matter. With monotheism, or with various pluralism and polytheism, we see a multiplicity of principles or powers at work. As indicated below, however, the situation is not always clear and simple, a matter of one or two or many, for there are monotheistic, monistic, and polytheistic religion with dualistic aspects. Various distinctions may be discerned in the types of dualism in general. In the first place, dualism may be either absolute or relative. In a radical or absolute dualism, the two principles are held to exist from eternity. For example, in Iranian dualism, Zoroastrianism, and Manichaeism, both the bright and beneficent and the sinister and destructive principles are from eternity. In a mitigated or relative dualism, one of the two principles may be derived from or presuppose the other as a basis. For example, the Bogomils, a medieval heretical Christian group, held that the devil is a fallen angel who came from God and was the creator of the human body, into which he managed by trickery to have God infuse a soul. Here the devil is a subordinate being and not co-eternal with God, the absolute eternal being. This then is clearly qualified, not a radical dualism. Both radical and mitigated types of dualism are found among different groups of the late medieval Cathari, a Christian heretical movement closely related to the Bogomils. Another and perhaps more important distinction is that between dialectical and eschatological dualism. Dialectical dualism involves an eternal dialectic or tension of two opposed principles, such as in Western culture, the one and the many, or idea and matter, or space called by Plato the receptacle. And in Indian culture, Maya, the illusory world of sense experience and multiplicity. In Atman Brahman, the essential identity of self and ultimate reality. Dialectical dualism ordinarily implies a cyclical or eternally repetitive view of history. Eschatological dualism, a dualism concerned with the ultimate destiny of humanity in the world, how things will be in the last time. On the other hand, conceives of a final resolution of the present dualistic state of things in which evil will be eliminated at the end of a linear history constituted of a series of unrepeatable events instead of a cyclical, repetitive one. The ancient Iranian religions, Zoroastrianism, Manichaeism, and Gnosticism, a religio-philosophical movement influential in the Hellenistic world provide examples of eschatological dualism, a type of thought such as Platonism that insists on a profound harmony in the cosmos. It is thus more radically dualistic because of its irreducibly dialectical character than Zoroastrianism and Manichaeism, with their emphasis on the cosmic struggle between two antithetical principles, good and evil. Midway between these extremes is Gnostic dualism, which has an ontology or theory of being of an orphic Platonic type. See below among ancient civilizations and people, but which also affirms the final disappearance and annihilation of evil with the eventual destruction of the material world, and thus comprises both dialectical and eschatological dualism. In philosophy, dualism is often identified with the doctrine of transcendency, or transcendence, that there is a separate realm or being above and beyond the world, as opposed to monism, which holds that the ultimate principle is inside the world, immanent. In the disciplines concerned with the study of religion, however, religious dualism refers not to the distinction or separation of God in the world, but to the doctrine of two basic principles, a doctrine that, moreover, may easily be compatible with a form of monism, Orphism, or the Advaita school of Vedanta, that makes the opposition between the one and the many absolute, and sees in multiplicity merely a fragmentation or illusory obliteration of the one. Now, you have historical varieties of religious dualism among ancient civilizations and peoples, like in the Middle East, like in Egypt and Mesopotamia. Then you have over in Greece and the Hellenistic world, over in Iran. Then you have among South and East Asian religions, like in India. Now over in China. Now you have classical Chinese thought, which began with the teaching of the philosopher Confucius, flourished early 5th century BCE, and ended with the close of the Warring States period in 221 BCE. Upheld the notion of a dynamic universe and thus generally eschewed the radical dualism that emerged in India, Iran, and Europe. The notion of yin-yang, the opposed polarities of cosmic flux, may at first seem dualistic. Yin is associated with passivity and femininity, yang with activity and masculinity. Yet yin and yang are not radically separate. They complement and permeate each other, emerging as two extreme aspects of the constant transformation of the Tao, the way of the universe. Likewise, all of the 10,000 things, a Chinese metaphor for the world, are seen as the cumulative product of the generative forces of heaven and earth. Like yin and yang, however, heaven and earth are complementary aspects of a continuous process of creation, and not radically separate entities. Then you got Buddhism. Then the philosopher Neo-Confucian thinker. Then you come to the among religions of the West. Dualism have appeared in Western religions chiefly under the impact of Gnostic influence of Judaism. No real dualism is found in Judaism, except in the Gnostic and theosophic forms of Jewish mysticism known as Kabbalah. The presence of a vigorous and universal monotheism implies not only faith in a single creative God, but also faith in a God who is the uncontested master of history, and neither Satan nor Belial detracts from this absolute monotheism. Then when you come to Christianity, in Christianity, dualistic concepts appeared principally in its Gnostic developments. But even in the 2nd century Judaizing sect of the Encratites, which was not really Gnostic, there were dualistic aspects that had modified some tendencies of later Judaism. These teachings were also particularly prominent in the writings of the supporters of Docetism, the doctrine that Christ, being divine, did not suffer and die. 2nd century, who held that matter is essentially evil, and that the soul is a pre-existent substance. All right, then it says the Gnostic dualist view survived in the late antiquity and into the Middle Ages, both in the East among the Mandaeans and the Yazidi, and some extreme sects within the Shiite branch of Islam, and in the West among the Bogomils and Cathari. It is still present today in modern theosophy. Then you have among religions of modern indigenous peoples, like North American Indians and Paleo-Siberians. The Dogon, the Western Sudanese, a lot of indigenous groups, on the planet. So now like I said, we over here on Britannica. Now let's go over here to Wikipedia. Dualism in cosmology is the moral belief that two fundamental concepts exist, which often oppose each other. It is an umbrella term that covers a diversity of views from various religions, including both traditional religions and scriptural religions. Moral dualism is the belief of the great complement of or conflict between the benevolent and the malevolent. It simply implies that there are two moral opposites at work, independent of any interpretation of what might be moral and independent of how these may be represented. Moral opposites might, for example, exist in a worldview that has one God, more than one God, or none. By contrast, duotheism, bitheism, or ditheism implies at least two gods, while bitheism implies harmony, ditheism implies rivalry and opposition, such as between good and evil, or light and dark, or summer and winter. For example, a ditheistic system could be one in which one God is a creator and the other a destroyer. In theology, dualism can also refer to the relationship between the deity and creation, or the deity and the universe. See theistic dualism. That form of dualism is a belief shared in certain traditions of Christianity and Hinduism. Alternatively, in ontological dualism, the world is divided into two overarching categories. Within Chinese culture and philosophy, the opposition and combination of the universe's two basic principles are expressed as yin and yang. And traditionally foundational doctrine of Taoism, Confucianism, and some Chinese Buddhist schools. Now, many myths and creation motives with dualistic cosmology have been described in ethnographic and anthropological literature. The motives conceive the world as being created, organized, and influenced by two demiurges, culture heroes, or other mythological beings who compete with each other or have a complementary function in creating, arranging, or influencing the world. There's a huge diversity of such cosmologies. All right, let me see here. Moral dualism is the belief of the great complement or conflict between the benevolent and the malevolent, like ditheism, bitheism. Moral dualism does not imply the absence of monists or monotheistic principles. Moral dualism simply implies that there are two moral opposites at work, independent of any interpretation of what might be moral, and unlike ditheism, bitheism, independent of how these may be represented. All right, let me see here. All right, then it talks about the Mandaeans, Mazda, Zoroastrianism, Menachionism, and even Hermetism. Now, moral dualism began as a theological belief. Dualism first seen implicitly in Egyptian religions by the contrast of the gods Set, disorder, death, and Osiris, order, and light. The first explicit concept of dualism came from the ancient Persian religion of Zoroastrianism around the mid-5th century BC. Zoroastrianism is a monotheistic religion that believes that Ahura Mazda is the eternal creator of all good things, and in violation of Ahura Mazda's order arises from Druj, which is everything uncreated. From this comes a significant choice for humans to make. Either they fully participate in human life for Ahura Mazda or they do not, and give Druj power. Personal dualism is even more distinct in the beliefs of later religions. The religious dualism of Christianity between good and evil is not a perfect dualism, as God, good, will inevitably destroy Satan, evil. Early Christian dualism is largely based on Platonic dualism. See Neoplatonism and Christianity. There is also a personal dualism in Christianity with a soul-body distinction based on the idea of an immature Christian soul. Now, duotheism, bitheism, and ditheism. When used with regards to multiple gods, dualism may refer to duotheism, bitheism, or ditheism. Although ditheism and bitheism imply moral dualism, they are not equivalent. Ditheism and bitheism implies at least two gods, while moral dualism does not necessarily imply theism at all. Both bitheism and ditheism imply belief in two equally powerful gods with complementary or autonomous properties. However, while bitheism implies harmony, ditheism implies rivalry and opposition, such as between good and evil, bright and dark, or summer and winter. For example, a ditheistic system would be one in which one God is creator, the other is destructive. In the original conception of Zoroastrianism, Ahura Mazda was the spirit of ultimate good, while Ahriman and Ramanian was the spirit of ultimate evil. In a bitheistic system, by contrast, where the two deities are not in conflict or opposition, one could be male and the other female. Duotheism. One well-known example of a bitheistic or duotheistic theology based on gender polarity is found in the neo-pagan religion of Wicca. In Wicca, dualism is representing the belief of a god and a goddess as a dual partnership in ruling the universe. This is centered on the worship of a divine couple, the moon goddess and the horn god, who are regarded as lovers. However, there is also a ditheistic theme within traditional Wicca, as the horn god has dual aspects of bright and dark, relating to day, night, summer, winter, expressed as the oak king and holy king, who in Wiccan myth and ritual are said to engage in battle twice a year for the hand of the goddess, resulting in the change in season. Within Wicca, bright and dark do not correspond to notions of good and evil, but are aspects of the natural world, much like yin and yang in Taoism. You have radical dualism or absolute dualism, which posits two co-equal divine forces. You have Manichaeism, conceives of two previously coexisting realms. And then from Zoroastrianism. And then you have mitigated dualism, where one of the two principles is in some way inferior to the other. Such classical Gnostic movements and the Sethians conceived of the material world as being created by a lesser divinity than the true God that was the object of their devotion. The spiritual world conceived of as being radically different from the material world, coextensive within the true God and the true home of certain enlightened members of humanity. Thus, these systems were expressive of a feeling of acute alienation within the world, and their resultant aim was to allow the soul to escape the constraints presented by the physical realm. However, bitheistic and ditheistic principles are not always so easily contrastable. For instance, in a system where one god is the representative of summer and drought and the other winter and rain, fertility, the mythology of Persephone, Martianism, and early Christians said here that the Old and New Testament were the work of two opposing gods. Both were first principles but of different religions. Theistic dualism. In theology, dualism can refer to the relationship between God and creation, or God and the universe. This form of dualism is a belief shared in certain traditions of Christianity and Hinduism. In Zoroastrianism, Manichaeism, and Christianity. The dualism between God and creation has existed as a central belief in multiple historical sects and traditions of Christianity, include Martianism, Catharism, Paulicianism, and other forms of Gnostic Christianity. Christian dualism refers to the belief that God and creation are distinct but interrelated through an indivisible bond. However, Gnosticism is a diverse, syncretistic religious movement consisting of various belief systems, generally united in the belief in the distinction between a supreme, transcendent God and a blind, evil demiurge responsible for creating the material universe, thereby trapping the divine spark within matter. Gnosticism is not limited to Christianity and also incorporates belief from other Abrahamic traditions, such as early Jewish sects. Now let's click over to this syncretism. Syncretism is the practice of combining different beliefs in various schools of thought. Syncretism involves the merging or assimilation of several originally discrete traditions, especially in the theology and mythology of religion, thus asserting an underlying unity and allowing for an inclusive approach to other faiths. While syncretism in art and culture is sometimes likened to eclecticism, in the realm of religion it specifically denotes a more integrated merging of beliefs into a unified system, distinct from eclecticism, which implies a selective adoption of elements from different traditions without necessarily blending them into a new cohesive belief system. Syncretism also manifests in politics, known as syncretistic politics. Religious syncretism. Religious syncretism is the blending of two or more religious belief systems into a new system, or the incorporation into a religious tradition of beliefs from unrelated traditions. This can occur for many reasons. In the latter scenario, happens quite commonly in areas where multiple religious traditions exist in proximity and function actively in a culture, or when a culture is conquered and the conquerors bring their religious belief with them, but do not succeed in entirely eradicating the old beliefs or especially practices. Religions may have syncretic elements to their beliefs or history, but adherents of so labeled systems often frown on applying the label, especially adherents who belong to revealed religious systems, such as the Abrahamic religions, or any system that exhibits an exclusivist approach. Such adherents sometimes see syncretism as a betrayal of their true truth. By this reasoning, adding an incompatible belief corrupts the original religion, rendering it no longer true. Indeed, critics of a syncretistic trend may use the word or its variants as a disparaging epithet, as a charge, implying that those who seek to incorporate a new view, belief, or practice into a religious system pervert the original faith. Non-exclusivist systems of belief, on the other hand, may feel quite free to incorporate other traditions into their own. So, that's syncretism. That's a serious thing. That's very serious. Just like it told you, hey, you have adherents of these Abrahamic religions, for example, Judaism. And then you have the Catholic Church, as well as the so-called Protestant churches. Now, get back over into this theistic dualism. It says, like the Cathars and the Paulicians, this is a dualism between the material world created by an evil God and a moral God. All right. And then you have like Hinduism, okay. Then you have ontological dualism. Alternative dualism can mean the tendency of humans to perceive and understand the world as being divided into two overarching categories, in the sense that it is dualism when one perceives a tree as a thing separate from everything surrounding it. This form of ontological dualism exists in Taoism and Confucianism, and a foundational theory within traditional Chinese medicine believes that divide the universe into the complementary opposition of yin and yang. In traditions such as classical Hinduism, Samkhya, Yoga, Vaisheshika, and the later Vedanta school, which accepted the theory of gunas, Chinese Pure Land, and Zen, Buddhism, or Islamic Sufism, a key to enlightenment is transcending this sort of dualistic thinking without merely substituting dualism with monism or pluralism. And then you have other religions. And let's click over here to the mind-body dualism. In the philosophy of mind-body dualism denotes either the view that mental phenomena are non-physical or that the mind and body are distinct and separable. Thus, it encompasses a set of views about the relationship between mind and matter, as well as between subject and object, and is contrasted with other positions such as physicalism and inactivism in the mind-body problem. Aristotle, dualism is closely associated with the thought of Rene Descartes, 1641, who holds that the mind is a non-physical and therefore non-spatial substance. Descartes clearly identified the mind with consciousness and self-awareness and distinguished this from the physical brain as the seat of intelligence. Hence, he was the first documented Western philosopher to formulate the mind-body problem in the form in which it exists today. However, the theory of substance dualism has many advocates. In contemporary philosophers such as Richard Steinberg, William Hasker, J.B. Moreland, E.J. Lowe, Charles Taylor Farrell, and so on and so forth. Dualism is contrasted with various kinds of monism. Substance dualism is contrasted with all forms of materialism, but property dualism may be considered a form of non-reductive physicalism. Alright, types. Ontological dualism makes dual commitments about the nature of existence as it relates to mind and matter, and can be divided into three different types. Substance dualism asserts that mind and matter are fundamentally distinct kinds of foundation. Property dualism suggests that the ontological distinction lies in the difference between properties of mind and matter, as in emergentism. Predicate dualism claims the irreducibility of mental predicates to physical predicates. And then scroll down. All right. Dualist views of mental causation. All right. Yeah. You have arguments for dualism. Then you have arguments against dualism. Let me click over trialism right quick. Trialism in philosophy was introduced by John Cottingham as an alternative interpretation of the mind-body dualism of Descartes. Trialism keeps the two substances of mind and body, but introduces a third substance, sensation, belonging to the union of mind and body. This allows animals which do not think like humans to be regarded as having sensations and not as being mere automata. So, all right, let's get a little background on this. Cottingham introduced this term after noting that Descartes' account of sensation and imagination has placed his official dualism under considerable pressure. Partly as a result of this, we often see the emergence in Descartes' writings on human psychology of a grouping of not two but three notions. Not a dualism, but what may be called a trialism. According to Cottingham, Descartes added the third notion of sensation alongside thought and extension without proceeding to ratify it as a separate substance. Thinkers such as Daniel Garber and Tad Schmaltz supported this by citing a letter in the correspondence between Descartes and Princess Elizabeth of Bohemia, which indicated that he changed his mind from a dualistic view. Well, I mean, later on, the Carties brought it up, and then apparently he may have possibly did some more research and made a, made a change to his view. Possibly, you had to go a little more in depth, but look, I'm gonna get ready to end today's video, and again, I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the Son of God, for all the blessings and the guidance He provide myself as well as all of us with, and continue to pray for peace. And because all around the world there are still wars being fought, and try to pray that there'll be peace. And people don't have to fight wars to resolve the issues. And so, like I said, continue to pray for peace. And then, continue to pray because natural disasters happen. Things, naturally, earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, things of that nature, rain, snow, even drought, because it gets so hot sometime in the summer that it causes droughts and then wildfires, so pray for about natural disasters. Like I said, today is my birthday, and I'm thankful. I thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the Son of God, for blessing me to be able to celebrate another birthday. That's what's important. Is that to be able to celebrate another birthday and to be able to say thank you, Jesus. And I'm continue to stand for the Lord's stone disciple and continue to expose the so-called liars, the people who should have never got away, but who thought they had all this time to make a complete fool out of themselves, like the gangster disciples and the black gangster New Breed and the so-called blood gang, Crip gang out there in Los Angeles, California. And all them that I just mentioned trying to pin on them bitches on the East Coast. Well, you can depend on them bitches on the East Coast all you want. And it's going to be justice. It will be justice. It will be justice. So I'm going to get ready, like I said, I'm going to get ready to end today's video. And I'm going to continue to do my read. It's not in vain. And I'm thankful for the Catholic Church. I'm thankful for the Jews. Because if it weren't for the Jews, understanding the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that man strives for, God gave His word to the children of Israel. And I thank God for doing it. And so I thank the Catholic Church for continuing to stand and for truth and continue to be guides against all this evil interpretations and continue to give the right interpretation of God's word. And for not letting that doggone Protestant nonsense be an influence. And so I'm gonna end today's video. I'm gonna come back on my next video. I'm gonna continue to stand for the truth. Take care of yourself, wish each one of you the very best.